hear what he's got to say. My wife has a farm she inherited recently, and we've got some spare ground that we'd like to do something with, and so I'm really anxious to hear what you've got to say. Take it away.
I will buy that spare ground for $500 an acre.
That's a little under market.
I know, it's about 10 times under market, isn't it?
It's an offer.
Yeah.
Hi, YouTube. Sup, YouTube. Look at the camera guy. He's just all serious. It's the beard. It's the beard. Beards make you serious. Best time of day on a clock is 6:30, hands down. Thank you.
I thought it was 5 a.m. every day. You're going to be here all week?
I can be.
Try the veal.
Yeah.
So does this mic actually work?
Yes.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can hear it? Okay. Well, you've heard about corduroy pillows then, right? They're making headlines. I mean, do you want me to keep going? See, I speak around the country, and I always kind of come with new puns to start everything, you know, because I get really serious really fast with the things I talk about. Like, kids growing up today see 35% fewer butterflies and moths than our parents did 40 years ago. Or things like, you know, we're losing our 4,000 native bee species at alarming rates. And honeybees don't matter, it's the native bees that matter, because honeybees are a managed imported crop that we use in agriculture, but our native bees, our 4,000 species, could actually do the work of pollinating everything we need for free, and we have healthier ecosystems as a result if we had just a little less corn and just a little less lawn. So my business is designing landscapes for churches, homeowners, businesses, I mean, whatever, you know, wherever and wherever. I'm even talking with Spring Creek Prairie a little bit. We'll see if we can get something going down there. But I design sustainable, low-maintenance, organic landscapes that are going to support wildlife. And what I'm really trying to do is support insects, which are the base of the food chain in our environment, because so much eats them, so much depends upon them. We depend upon them. We depend on a healthy, clean environment. So there is certainly, I get into a little trouble sometimes with my business because at one time I'm trying to be like you all, very professional, and I'm a doctor too. I'm doctor, you know, so just trying to give you all your credentials and try to be like, hey man, let's work on something together. We're gonna find solutions to stuff. There's that side of me, and there's this crazy ass, you know, activist side, right? And that's why I wrote this book. This is all Rachel Carson. This is Aldo Leopold. This is saying, people, we are in the 6th mass extinction right now. We are facing climate change that we caused, and it doesn't have to be like this. We need to do something now, and it starts in our home landscapes. It starts with what you do out back. It can start with just one aster. And aster is an incredibly important plant because it's blooming, you know, late summer, early fall, and it's going to get tons of pollinators on it. Lots of diversity, because a lot of our insects, that's when our insect populations are the highest, when our pollinators are at their highest, is late summer. Most of them have gone through their life cycles, reproduced, all that good stuff. Then we have a lot of migrating insects. We have insects, we have butterflies and bees that are going to overwinter, and leaf litter and stems that are on the ground. And they're getting ready, you know, they're fueling up to either fly off somewhere or to hunker down over the winter. So there's this dichotomy that I have to live with, and maybe you guys do too, that's, I think, really difficult when you're trying to run a business, and especially an outreach business, when you're trying to work with other people who quite aren't where you want them to be yet, and you're impatient because, you know, look at all the lawn we have in our neighborhoods that we don't have to have, that's watered all the time, that's fertilized all the time. You know, we have all these unused lawn spaces around business campuses and places of worship that we just don't have to have. They're actually going to cost significantly more, anywhere from 10 to 20 times more to maintain over 10 years than if you put in a prairie or a smaller designed meadow landscape. So that's, I guess what, that's me in a nutshell. So I speak around the country on this. I've got a blog. I've got all kinds of things that I'm trying to do. Let me tell you this, because this is sort of exciting. So I live on a 1/4 acre lot, right? And I use it as a testing ground and a proving ground, and now I'm gonna get into some trouble ground. And I got into trouble this last week because I have 4,500 square feet of gardens. I'm always bringing clients over and say, you know, let's look, this is what we can do. This is a possibility. These are some of the plants we can use that are gonna work for you in your landscape. But a neighbor reported me because I converted half of my backyard into a meadow. Now, it's not just throwing a bag of seed out. I don't want anybody to throw a bag of seed out into landscapes and just be like, well, we'll just see what happens, because you are going to get the county weed board to come up and get you. They're going to get you anyway when a neighbor reports you for your back meadow, but it's a design meadow, so flowers are in clumps and groups and drifts. There's a purpose to them. Certain plant is next to a certain plant because they're going to compete well with one another, right? So there's a lot of thought to it. But anyway, had county weed control over everything. We had a great conversation this week walking by landscape, because when I opened the door, I was like, oh my God, this is like the end of my business if they tell me this is stuff we can't do in the city of Lincoln. We walked around, we had a wonderful conversation about this is the way our landscapes are going. This is the way they're going to have to go. We're going to have another 2012 again when we had a drought and we had water restrictions. We should probably be on permanent water restrictions all the time, actually. So, yeah, they basically said, which was awesome. It was life affirming. It was business affirming. It was right here. We talked about, you know, one of the big things we talked about was fire danger there, which I feel is kind of strange, because one of the keys to sustainable landscape design for pollinators is that you leave the plants up over winter. I know we've been taught that in the fall you cut your plants down because you want to look nice, neat, and ordered, but you're destroying habitat. You're destroying things that birds and insects and spiders and beetles and flies and everything needs to make it through the winter. And those plants standing up insulate themselves by gathering snow around them, and that snow hydrates them when it melts in the spring. So there's all this, because when you go into nature, do you see, you know, otters and or whatever just coming along and mowing things down when they get a couple hard freezes? Do you see wood mulch out in nature anywhere? Somebody say yes, because I want to come get you. We don't need all these things. You know, we have a landscaping industry that says you need to buy this fertilizer, you need to buy this mulch, you need to buy this colored mulch, which actually might harm the soil because the dyes are toxic. You know, you need soil amendments to change your soil to have a perfect soil for plants to grow well in. For the most part, not in every situation, but for the most part, that's all bogus. That's just to get you to spend more money, which is great for them, right? It's great for business when you're trying to run, but it's not great when you're trying to create a space that's safe and functional and sustainable over time. So I'm very much a low maintenance guy. So I feel like I should do Q&A right now almost. No, I mean, because, you know, starting this business, you guys know how it is. It's nerve-wracking. You think you're not going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it today. Who thinks they're not going to make it today sitting in this room? Come on. Yeah, oh my God, it's been a bad year. And for me, it was such a late spring, you know. Everything's off kilter. And this is the deal with climate change, right? Things are going to be stranger. So how are we going to deal with it in our landscapes? How are we going to have more functional, biodiverse landscapes that can take these extreme climate changes when we don't have periods of rain for weeks or even months at a time like we had in 2012? We have to rethink pretty in our landscapes. What's not just pretty for us? What's pretty for all the wildlife around us that are struggling because we've come in and supplanted their habitat? We can live together. We can learn so much from one another. That's why urban wildness for me is a very deep passion. This is why I want gardens in urban areas. I want gardens in low-income areas, because especially in low-income areas, people don't have access to nature. They don't have access to cars to go visit nature, because we don't have very much nature in the city. We get little tiny pockets we try to put in among huge swaths of concrete and asphalt, but it's really not enough. We know that nature heals us. We know that nature calms us down. We know that kids who are looking out of a classroom window and see diverse nature, not just lawn and a tree, but they're actually seeing flower beds and grass beds and shrubs and all kinds of things and birds and butterflies coming in. When kids have that view out of the classroom, their test scores improve. They can work better in groups. They're more creative. Their symptoms of ADHD lessen. Hospital patients with views of nature out of a room go up. Urban and suburban business districts that have very diverse nature along the walkways, or they have parks around there, businesses see their income go up because people want to be there. They want to spend money. It's like, oh, flower, have $100. Oh my God, I wish it worked like that, right? That'd be a great job. So I'm going to talk real quick about my career path, and let's just do Q&A, whatever you want to talk about. I have a BFA in creative writing. I have an MFA in creative writing. I have a PhD in.
Writing.
I am way overeducated. I actually think that about 4 years into my PhD, I started to go down. I started to get stupider. So you can hear it, right? So my background is writing and research and looking at and looking at something from multiple points of view to see if it's valid, if it's going to work, if it's something that you really should believe and pursue. And it really, we have a lack of critical thinking, I think, in our culture about. So when we're driving around and be like, oh, that's a pretty garden. Maybe it's not. It might have lots of flowers, but it might not be doing anything. Right? So I can throw research to you until I'm blue in the face, until you run out of here screaming like, I can't believe that guy just did that to me. But what is pretty for wildlife? What is pretty for the butterflies and the birds? We have hundreds of native grassland birds that are going to be facing extinction in the next few decades because there just isn't going to be prairie left. 70% of our prairies are going to be gone by the end of the century. We're plowing them up. There's climate change. It's all kinds of good stuff. It's not good stuff, but you know what I mean. I don't know. Let's just have question and answer time. That's what I wanted. Look at that. I knew that was going to happen. Beautiful woman in the gray hair.
So what got you started from writing onto this?
Okay, that's good too. So I grew up with a mother who was a gardening fiend. And I think she did it for two reasons. One's the funny reason. She wanted to get the heck out of the house away from us, right? I was a good kid. My sisters weren't. Are you watching this? I'm in trouble. Okay. So I grew up. So she was always dragging me to the nurseries. Eventually, it wasn't dragging. I wanted to get away with her. We were both quiet introverts, so we would sit on the 20-minute car ride, not say a word to one another. It was bliss. Then we go to the nursery, and we both walked. She walked this way, I walked this way. Look at plants, and it was quiet. And it was bliss. So it was like both of our centering times. But when I was working on my PhD, one of my dissertations was writing a memoir just about my history with gardening, history with landscape and nature, and trying to figure out who I am, who I come from in the natural world. So I was talking to my mom, interviewed her one day, and it quickly became a very serious conversation. And she said, I'm going to tell you this only once in my life. I'm never going to tell you again. One of the reasons that she's so into gardening that's just such a deep passion for her is that when she was a child, her stepfather was abusive towards her and her brothers. So she would escape by going to her grandparents' house. They had large vegetable gardens, a huge weeping willow that shares a swing, and that was her escape. That was her place, right? So that's what it's been her whole life. And for us, I know that gardens are an escape, but they're also a place. They're also a center of activism and awareness about what we're doing to the natural world and how we can become empowered to make a difference and do something that's totally opposite to what our culture is doing right now to the world around us. So that was a long answer. Blue shirt.
Tell me again why lawns are bad.
Why are lawns banned? They are monocultures. They do not support wildlife.
But they're beautiful.
They're beautiful to you, right?
Yeah, a beautifully manicured,
right,
well-kept lawn.
Right, and so it's watered a lot, right? So we're wasting a lot of clean water, fresh water, that we're not going to be able to do coming up here pretty soon. The fertilizers we use are produced with a lot of water. They're produced with a lot of fossil fuels. The fertilizers we put in our lawn off-gas toxic chemicals. A lot of them also wash off, and they go into our streams and waterways. So that's not so cool. How many times have you seen a bee or a butterfly using grass to get pollen and nectar?
Never.
Never. Now, lawns can be pretty to us. Lawns can be functional. There are reasons to have lawns. There are not reasons to have as much lawn as we have. There are not reasons to have lawn as a default landscaping mode. When you buy a new house in a subdivision, what do? They just slather down lawn right up to the house's foundation walls, and that's it. You're done. That's doing nothing for the environment. Okay? Now, grass roots, they only go down about 6 inches, and that's if you cut high. Most people cut 2 to 3 inches. You should be cutting 4 to 6 inches high. Higher your grass is, deeper your roots are going to go. But still, those grass roots, they're not going nearly as deep as things like coneflower, which goes down 9 or 10 feet, bluestem, which goes down 10, 12 feet. Some of our milkweeds, I think, Asclepias tuberosa, orange butterfly weed, and we have some liatris that go down even deeper, down to 14 feet. I mean, that is drought-tolerant mega stuff, and it's going down there into our wonderful clay soil. It's not nasty clay soil. It's wonderful clay soil, and they're breaking it up, and they're amending it, and they're changing it, and they're recreating the rich, loamy black soils that farmers love in our region, right? That took millennia to establish. So that's my And if you want to go out in the parking lot afterward, I am totally game. Actually, I'm a really weenie. I'm a big weenie.
Yeah.
Somebody else had questions over here.
I have a whole ton of questions, so I'll just ask them one at a time, so if somebody else has questions. The first most important one is, I want to get a patch of milkweed or milkweed in an area going. How can I do that?
It depends on what area it is. It depends on how much sunlight it gets. It depends on the soil. It depends on the drainage. And then I would have to suggest a specific species for that. So we have something like 100 milkweed species in our country,
Oh, really?
right? And we have like 20 native to Nebraska.
I can't go into my neighbor's acreage and just put some
Oh,
pods and...
you're gonna do some common milkweed. I
Yeah.
wouldn't put that stuff in your garden if we're talking, because you probably have a small lot, right? Quarter acre or less.
Just shy of 5 acres.
Oh, 5 acres. Well, that's better. You're okay then. If you do common milkweed on a small lot, that stuff's just gonna spread like wildfire.
Okay.
Now, we do have well-behaved milkweed, like swamp milkweed, or it's also called red milkweed. The orange butterfly weed I mentioned before, those are nice behaved clumpers. This is why you want to hire a landscape designer, even if it's just for a plan, because some of us know what we're talking about, even if we're not Campbell's or Earl May, because I'm like totally not like them at all, right? No mulch, no fertilizer, don't want to water. If we're going to water, it's just for the first 2 weeks while the plants are establishing. I'm using really small plants. They're like, that's how much soil they have around their roots. It's not much. So plugs in 2.5-inch pots. They're cheaper, more economical, and you can put them on 12-inch centers. So you want to plant your gardens thickly, so weeds are going to have a harder time to compete. They're going to be shaded out, and the roots of the plants you want in there are going to be stealing resources, nutrients, and water from the weeds that are trying to establish. Because when you go into nature, it's not plant 3 feet of mulch, plant 3 feet of mulch, and they're all roses, daylilies, hosta. Things that aren't very beneficial to wildlife. Right next to you.
So we're talking about acreages, but I've got a postage stamp.
Yeah.
It takes me longer to clean my mower than to mow my yard.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Would you like my card? Well, you're doing the same thing I have. Your postage stamp is probably a little smaller than my postage stamp, right? I'm on a quarter acre. What are you on?
I'm on my yard's probably 50 feet by 75 feet.
Oh yeah, you can do a lot there. Wait, what's your question? What are you gonna do? You can do so much. What's 50 times 70?
What's 225?
There you go. 225 square feet. That's a lot. That's a nice garden, isn't it?
320.
325? I can't do math either. I should quit my job.
Yeah.
What would I do without my old TI-85 calculator, right?
So what can I go home and do tonight?
Start researching plants that are native to Nebraska and think about which ones you might like to have in your landscape. Get my handout that's back there somewhere. I think it's by So, obviously, God, I know this is why I'm here, but it feels so dirty, right? Go to my website. I've got almost 200 free articles on native plants and sustainable landscape design. Start reading some of those books that are on the back of that sheet. Look at those 7 plants I put on the front of the sheet. Those are some really good. That list, it shouldn't be 7. It should be 7,000, right? But those are some of the flowering native species that really attract the most adult pollinators that are coming to get nectar and pollen from their flowers. So that's why I put that list on that sheet. What?
The city of Lincoln has a bunch of medians.
Yeah.
That they're fond of putting in.
Yeah.
Planted the grass, and then a lot of them get neglected basically all summer. They're not really well tended or anything like that. What could the city do with their medians using native plants?
So are you talking about they just put they just seed some lawn in there or something, or like that? You guys familiar with that stretch of Cornhusker out by the airport that they recently redid? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So a mile or two out going east from the airport, they did that median in there with plants. And that was awesome to see because it was native plants. It was pretty the first year or two. But the issue there was, so it's like a first step, right? But the issue there was that they were clumping and grouping the same plant. So you'd have 20 feet of a blue stem, 20 feet of elatrius or something like that. And these plants weren't covering the ground. They were never going to compete well against weeds. So I need to drive out there again, but I recently heard from a big dog that the weeds they're just going insane out there, right? It's because the plantings were not done tightly. It's because they're not layered. You need to have a ground cover, a mid-level, a top layer. Because when you go out in nature, you see these layers. These layers are competing against weeds. So if our city did something like that, and even if it's short grasses, because in those medians, oh my God, it's hot as heck. They're going to have weeds coming in off of trucks and blowing in off the wind, and then they got the salt and the snow in the winter. And we do have native species that can handle the salt and the snow. We just need to rethink. You know, it's just baby steps, but they must have spent so much money out there in those medians. Maybe we do an experimental test plot at 50 feet or 100 feet to see what we can do with layered, maybe more aggressive native plants that will really just duke it out with some of our more aggressive weeds that we have. You know, and then I do have tips for, you know, working with weed ordinance laws, but we don't have to talk about that. No, let's see somebody new. Yeah.
So
Oh.
if you want me to do afterwards, a friend of mine has a kind of a boat shape, huge boat. She has no lawn. Everything's planted.
Cool.
But between the sidewalk and the street, she had plants, and the neighbors turned her in, and she had to cut them all down. So anyway, I'll talk to you then about that later. But I've had problems with some of the grasses that have been there, say 5 or 10 years, just winter killing. Is there, should I maybe, are they they were not packed tightly or anything. Do you think they're getting too much cold or?
No, I have no idea. But thank you for talking to me.
Well, anyway,
Well,
that's the problem I've had with grasses.
what kind of grasses are they?
Oh, I have no idea.
See, that's the problem.
I planted them like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Or do you think do they get those big silvery white poofy seed heads on the fall?
Yeah, some of them do, and some were purple.
All right. Well, the white ones are definitely miscanthus. That's from China or Japan or something like that. Invasive in some parts of our country.
Different kinds of.
Yeah.
We got them at a local seed place, so I think they were native, but sort of looked like loose tune kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk later.
Yeah, because it kind of died out. I'll replant.
Is this what we should be talking about today? Okay.
I'll swing it around to the other side. So
Okay.
business-wise, who are you targeting? Like current homeowners, or are you trying to work with developers to get this out, ahead of when you get it established?
I think I'm taking baby steps. I mean, when you're a small business owner, one man show, you're just trying to figure things out as you go along. And I felt like if you jump too far forward, you're not going to be ready. You're making a mistake, and then nobody's ever going to work with you again. So I've just been sticking with homeowners. I've done some work with the Nebraska Wildlife Federation. They've gotten some grant work to do some nonprofit pollinator gardens around schools and nonprofit businesses. So that has been good just to engage with the community and also just get some of my gardens established out there, hopefully looking good. I mean, it takes 3 years for these gardens, this kind of style, to really look good. But the plants do establish as fast, if not faster, in those big 1-gallon pots. So my targeting has been, I tried so many marketing things this spring, and I'm not sure anything really worked. I think the thing that maybe worked the best, unfortunately, was Facebook ads. I just hate giving them money. But I did some targeted mailers to new homeowners, doing higher education level, doing higher income level, because my goal is to do larger landscapes. Smaller landscapes, they're great, a wonderful place to learn how to do this, but they don't pay the bills that well. I know that sounds bad, but it's true. You have to do 50 of them a year to make ends meet. So I went to some local businesses and said too, hey, can we display this special card I had made up that advertises my business at your point of sale, and then every time somebody says they got the card and mention your business, I'll give you a little kickback. That hasn't worked at all. But I was trying to pick, progressive small businesses in town, because that's definitely what my message is, right? I'm not the Earl May Campbell's crowd, at least not yet anyway. Does that answer your question much?
I just wanted to see where you're focusing now. Doesn't mean you
Yeah.
continue your focus there.
You know where I'm focusing on right now? Beefing up my checking account. Doesn't that sound? I mean, I mean, last year I was getting larger homeowners and acreages, and this year I'm getting very small homeowners with foundation beds. I don't know what the difference is because I really haven't changed doing what I've been doing from last year to this year. Last year, though, I hardly marketed at all, and I had larger jobs that were. And this year I'm marketing more, but I'm getting smaller jobs. I don't know what's going on, and it's so hard to measure this stuff, isn't it? I don't really think there's one answer out there, and you can spend all day long trying to look at your metrics on your websites and your ads and stuff, and I don't know, I just give up too easily. I don't have the money to spend on an expert to help me with that, even if they know what they're doing. I don't know if they do.
Besides the culture around what a well-groomed yard should look like, what do you feel like has been your biggest business challenge?
Yeah, I guess it is. That's everybody's problem. How do you disrupt the market in a way, because I was reading this article the other day about how you should piss off people. And I'm really good at that. I'm really good at that in writing, especially. And by piss off, he didn't mean just like, hey, you're ugly, I don't like your shirt. It was, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. You need to be like uber passionate about it. And just go for it. Just plow ahead, because you're going to have super fans that are going to drive your marketing effort. They're going to help you along the way. And everybody else, whatever. That's hard to think like that. So yeah, marketing. How do you find people? Pollinators are so big in the news right now. Native plants are big in the news. Landscape architecture. What do you call it? Society or something. The Society of Landscape Architects or whatever. I can't believe this is going to be on YouTube. I'm an idiot. Anyway, every year they do a survey of landscape professionals asking, what are your clients looking for? Like 90% native plants, 85% organic solutions, 75% drought-tolerant plants. So people are wanting this stuff, but so what's wrong? Is my Google algorithm not working for me? I don't know. I think a lot of people just think, well, here's a big nursery in town, I'm going to go there. But so often the help is seasonal, and they really don't know the plants. They don't know what's going to be using the plants. They don't know how to do the kind of design that I'm talking about. That's really new, but you see it in big gardens like the Highline in New York and Allure Garden in Chicago and lots of other places around the country. This is such a new way to think about how our public landscapes and private landscapes should look. We're so ingrained with this French aristocratic idea from the 1700s that you have to have lawn, and here's your castle. And it doesn't work in America. That's not what America is. We have hundreds of different ecoregions. Each one is different. It's going to support plants in different ways and supporting different plants. So, what was the original question? Marketing.
So where do you find these early adopters? Where do what are the characteristics of those people be?
Oh yeah, they are so far left. They're like way over there, man. Like 50 miles that way. People are definitely involved in all kinds of different progressive and social justice issues. Are definitely my bread and butter right now.
Maybe people in community gardens?
Yes, community gardens folks. Yeah, Sierra Clubs, Wildlife Federation, talked about Audubon Society. So hooking up with those people. They all know me. I know them. So we're just not having beers together. I don't drink beer. That's why.
Question back to the postage stamp yard that won't grow grass to save my life. Is there something on your site, or can you put something on your site that you can grow in your lawn and you will not have the Lincoln weed control knocking at your door because you don't have that lovely little lawn?
Well, I had Lincoln Lawn Control knocking on my door, and we solved the problem.
Okay,
but that's because I have a design space that's intentionally thought out, and I could name every plant when they came over.
Okay, so do you have something on your site that would recommend plants that instead of, definitely, because I don't want to do lawn, I just want to do something that low maintenance, whatever.
I'm going to say no, because that is such a tricky question.
Okay.
I mean, it really depends on what your soil's like, what your light is like, how you're going to put the plants together in a design. I can tell you this generally, you want plants that aren't going to spread aggressively or very much at all. So that means behaved clumping plants that don't seed too much. And that list, we could be here for hours talking about that potential list without me knowing what your specific site conditions are.
All the time, because in my right of way, I do not ever want to mow because people drain. planted vinca and ornamental grass,
Yeah,
but because of crazy people,
well,
they killed it, so.
well, and anything up there in the hill strip, you want to keep short, a foot or less. The city's probably going to tell you 6 inches. So, and you don't want to be disturbing sight lines. I think, like I said before, you don't want county weed control in your back. You want to group and clump and mass plants together. So 3 of a kind, 5 of a kind. It's also going to help pollinators flying overhead to see the plants from further away because it's a bigger beacon. You have like 3 asters together instead of just one little aster trying to poke up through some grasses or something. I have a base layer in my front gardens. By the way, my home landscape is on a garden tour this Saturday from 9 to 1. It's the Lincoln Garden Club tour. Come over and get chiggers with me, because it's almost chigger season and they're just unavoidable. So yeah, my front yard I've got, and I've done this with clients too. There's a 6-foot wide long pathway that goes up the middle between 2 wild native prairie beds. That 6-foot pathway lawn connects to the Hell Strip lawn, which connects along the curve of the street to all the lawns in the neighborhood. So there's this connective tissue, so to speak, right? And that lawn pathway also says, hey, there's a purpose behind this landscape. I just didn't throw out that bag of seed. So it welcomes humans in. Things like benches, sculptures. Have a sign out front that says, this is a native plant pollinator garden that is not supposed to be watered and is being treated organically or not treated at all, et cetera, et cetera. Signs are so important. I was told that again this week, so. But I do have an article. For a long time I wrote almost a weekly article for house.com, and I have an article about how to design a landscape so you're escaping the ire, or at least the higher ups, maybe not your neighbors. And then you're supposed to talk to your neighbors. Everybody in my neighborhood just comes home, the garage door's halfway up, car's in the garage door doesn't make it quite up before you press the button and it comes down. So we're all introverts. So I have to go knocking on doors, I guess, and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm not accusing you or blaming you of anything or saying you did anything. I just want to let you know what I'm doing. If you'd like to come over and look at it and talk about it, I'd love to. Especially because, oh my God, you have so much lawn and no plants, not even a tree. So, what else do you want to talk about? What time is it?
One more question. Anybody? Okay.
Well, I hope this has been interesting. I'm sure it's quite different than what usually goes on. So,
It's great. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the tour this week?
yeah, the Lincoln Garden Club is putting it on. So there's 5 gardens around town. Mine is way on the west side, way away from the other ones by Pioneers Park. But just go to that one. It'll be the best one. So yeah, it's 9 to 1. I think they're doing a breakfast down at Union Plaza in that Jane Schneider Trails building first, and it's free. So, and they should have a map. I think the Lincoln Journal started an article on it, so should have a map and all that good stuff. So, all right, come get chiggers. Come on.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Benjamin, thank you. Thank you for speaking, Dave. We want to give you one of our Focus Suite mugs.
There's nothing in it.
Well, you can plant some native plants.
I was expecting at least Irish coffee.
We can talk about that later. We are a community college, though, so we're a little restricted on ingredients. So, anyway, thank you so much. Please feel free to hang around as long as you like. There's no need to run off. Get those business cards out. Meet somebody new before you leave, or come up and ask Benjamin more questions if you have them for him. We'll be back here next week with Sniffer's Bio Suite, and so please come back for that. Have a great week. Thank you.